Welcome to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. It's hard to believe, but today marks the 40th anniversary of the premiere of the film Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, which was officially released in the US back on June 4th, 1982. Arguably the best Star Trek film ever produced, at least with the original cast. It remains one of my favorite Star Trek films of all time, along with Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. There were a lot of things that made this a truly great film. First, it has a well-written plot and script, which was exciting and showcased the behaviors and interpersonal interactions between the members of the original crew, especially those of James T. Kirk, as played by William Shatner, Spock, as played by the late Leonard Nimoy, and Dr. Leonard McCoy, as played by the late DeForest Kelley. Second, their acting was also spot on, including the acting of the late Ricardo Montalban, who did a fantastic job of reprising his original series role of one of Captain Kirk's biggest foes, the genetically enhanced Khan Noonien Singh, who during the original series was found on board a centuries-old ship called the SS Botany Bay, which had been launched from Earth in the fictional 1990s and carried around 70 other genetically enhanced humans bent on conquest and control. Their ship was a sleeper ship, meaning that it was filled with suspended animation chambers, and when it was inadvertently encountered by the Enterprise, it was still operational. After boarding the ship, Scotty, as played by the late James Doohan, reactivated the ship's controls, which accidentally initiated a revival sequence in one of the suspended animation chambers, the one occupied by Khan, who most of the Enterprise crew was unfamiliar with. A 20th century historian who Kirk ordered to join their landing party, Lieutenant Marla McGivers, as played by the late Madeline Rue, became enamored with Khan and knew exactly who he was. She reluctantly agreed to assist him in reviving the others and to help Khan take over the Enterprise. In that original series episode, which was entitled Space Seed and which premiered on February 16, 1967, Kirk and crew narrowly avoided being killed by Khan and his genetically enhanced compatriots. Instead of taking them to the nearby Starbase 12, Kirk offers to settle Khan and his compatriots on an alien M-class planet called Ceti Alpha 5, and because McGivers had assisted Khan, she went along with them to avoid a general court-martial. After agreeing to settle there, Khan quotes Milton's Lucifer, saying, "It is better to rule in hell than serve in heaven." Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan begins with a seemingly dangerous scene in which a Vulcan Starfleet lieutenant named Saavik, as played by Kirstie Alley, orders the Enterprise into the neutral zone to rescue several survivors on board a ship named the Kobayashi Maru that had accidentally drifted into it. Upon entering the neutral zone, the Enterprise is immediately attacked by 3 Klingon battlecruisers and suffers heavy damage. Then, when all seems lost, the wall opens to find Admiral Kirk critiquing Saavik's failure because, apparently, it was all part of a training session at Starfleet Academy. Shortly thereafter, Saavik and a number of the other Academy trainees, which included Scotty's nephew, Peter Preston, as played by Ike Eisenman, go on board the Enterprise, which was under the command of now Captain Spock, with Admiral Kirk on board for an inspection. Dr. McCoy and most of the rest of the original series Enterprise crew, including Lieutenant Uhura, as played by Nichelle Nichols, and Lieutenant Sulu, as played by George Takei, are still assigned to the USS Enterprise's crew. The film then goes to a distant planet, where another Federation starship, the USS Reliant, is scrutinizing as the potential location to test a secret device being developed by Federation scientist Dr. Carol Marcus, as played by the late Bibi Besh, and her son David Marcus, as played by the late Merritt Buttrick. As it turns out, David is James Kirk's son. Kirk and Carol Marcus apparently had a romantic affair many years earlier. The distant planet that the Reliant under the command of Captain Clark Terrell, as played by the late Paul Winfield, and who was being assisted by original series cast member Commander Pavel Chekhov, as played by Walter Koenig, is believed to be Ceti Alpha 6. But after transporting to the rather unpleasant surface of the planet, they encounter Federation containers, which, after entering, Chekhov finds a relic from the SS Botany Bay and immediately remembers Khan. But before Chekhov can get himself and Terrell out of the apparent very dangerous situation, the remaining survivors of the Botany Bay, including Khan Noonien Singh himself, arrive. After Chekhov briefly argues with Khan, as they still think that they were on Ceti Alpha 6, Khan explains to Chekhov that several months after they had been left on Ceti Alpha 5 by then Captain James T. Kirk, the actual Ceti Alpha 6 had exploded, which caused the orbit of Ceti Alpha 5 to shift and destroyed much of the planet's environment. Thus, Chekhov and Terrell weren't on Ceti Alpha 6, they were on Ceti Alpha 5, and Khan quickly took advantage of the situation by taking over their minds by placing native Ceti Alpha 5 creatures into their heads, the same type of creature that had killed his wife, Marla MacGyvers, several months after they had been stranded there by Kirk. Bent on avenging himself, his deceased wife, and the others who didn't survive, Khan and his surviving genetically enhanced compatriots take over the Reliant to destroy James Kirk and the Enterprise. With several battles between the two Federation starships and lots of intrigue, the film is a cat-and-mouse game initiated by Khan to avenge himself against Kirk. In the process, Captain Terrell is killed, as are a number of trainees and staff on board the laboratory space station where Carol and David Marcus had been working. The device that they created, the highly classified Genesis device, was designed to convert an uninhabitable planet into one that could support life, and Khan decides that he wants it after he learns about it. While Khan succeeds in obtaining the Genesis device, he fails to kill or strand Kirk thanks to Spock's ingenuity and ability to stretch the truth, much to Savik's surprise. Khan! Kirk is then eventually able to outwit Khan, who destroys himself with the Genesis device in the hopes that it will also destroy Kirk and the Enterprise. But Spock imperils himself by entering a highly radioactive room to repair the ship's warp drive. At the last second, Sulu is able to engage warp drive and save the Enterprise along with its crew and passengers. Spock, however, dies in the episode after being exposed to the radiation and to Kirk's great sadness. A funeral for Spock is held with the coffin bearing his body jettisoned from the Enterprise onto the newly created planet that was the result of the Genesis device, and to be revisited during the third Star Trek film that was released 2 years later. Unlike its predecessor, The Wrath of Khan was highly popular and remains so to this day. It's still one of my favorite Star Trek movies, and to honor its 40th anniversary, I watched it again this morning. If you haven't seen Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, or you haven't seen it in a long time, I highly recommend it. And I personally thank all those who made the film a reality. It really is one of my favorite films, and it doesn't age. It looks just as good today to me as it did when it first came out. This is a film that, like the original series, never looks dated. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to everyone who has subscribed to our channel. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button, and please feel free to share a comment. If you'd like to see more of our videos in the future and help support this channel, please press the red subscribe button, and please press the bell to receive notifications for new content. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.